Well, hello, everyone. This is Samara Grace, and I welcome you to the 11/11 of 2023 Mother Mary Monthly Message. It's wonderful if you are listening to this either live or later on, and I so appreciate each and every one of you devoting yourselves and some of your time to saying, what can I do? How can I behave in a way that is going to be inspirational or loving or just bring a little bit of joy somewhere? And so, as most of you know, my name is Samara Grace, and I've been channeling Mother Mary for quite a long time. And her messages are always loving, but they're also quite specific about perhaps some of the things that we can think about or choose or look at to help ourselves, our families, and each other. So without further ado, I'm going to just close my eyes for a moment, and you're going to hear Mother Mary come through with this message for 11/11 of 2023. Well, hello to all of my beloved sons and daughters. I want to sort of remind you of something tonight because it is so important. In other broadcasts, I've talked to you about being emissaries of the light, and indeed you are. But tonight I want you to look also at another capacity that each of you have, and that's to be a guardian at the gate. Some of you feel the resonance of that particular set of words, a guardian at the gate. When you incarnated here on earth, each of you had certain challenges to meet and certain difficulties to overcome, and certainly many, many gifts to share. But besides being an emissary of the light, you are also, if you choose to be that in even greater strength, you are a guardian at the gate. Now, what does that mean? So many people right now are running around completely fearful, discouraged, upset, downtrodden, sort of just at their wits' end, And because they don't yet have that understanding or even that consciousness that even when it looks terrible, as so many things do right now, it is somehow part of the divine plan unfolding. And yet to watch it sort of in a way of just looking at it without doing something can feel very disheartening. So to be a guardian of the gate is to now, in this particular timing, especially the next few years, to not just let it go when someone says something, if you feel you can reach them. Now, notice I said, if you feel you can reach them. I do not in any way want you to run around with a soapbox and a sign, no. But when someone says something and you feel like you could have them look at it a different way, you take on the mantle of a guardian of the gate, meaning to say, just as James just did you see the good news? Did you see the good news? And when you do that about anything, whether it's about the current situation in the Middle East or about someone who's in the hospital or about someone who's having health problems, who in that moment is only experiencing the difficulties and sometimes the fear and horror of that situation. And so they're encased in a sort of a cloud of chaotic emotions and fears and all of that. If you can penetrate it with a positive, true statement, their heart space can reactivate, almost like a little, when they do that paddle things and wake people up who've had heart problems. When you can do that, you reactivate their own well-being, their own heart, their own knowing, their own sense of possibility. And that is an extraordinary gift in the world right now that is going through so many challenges. And so to be a guardian of the gate, again, I'm going to say this a couple of times, I don't want you to go and try to argue with someone about anything. ever. It's just futile. But if someone is sort of repeating a negative paradigm, a negative loop of experience, oh, isn't it awful? All the banks are going to go bankrupt and my stock portfolio is going to, whatever they're saying. If there's an opportunity for you to say something true, now that's very important also. It's not just some well-meaning, well, things will always get better. That's not helpful. But if you can share a perspective that comes from your own wisdom, from your own experience, from your own light, that helps them in that moment, like a jolt, a positive jolt, to say, oh, no, James, I didn't see what was on the news. Tell me more about that. Or in the case of people who are still dealing with physical issues, being in the hospital, having heart issues, etc., it's to realize you have to bring them a bouquet of hope that they can see, taste, smell, etc. That's why people bring flowers and chicken soup to the hospitals. But it's also to say, I see you getting better. I see it. And let me hold your hand. Let me give you Reiki. Let me pray with you. Again, whatever is in your wheelhouse to offer. Because the world right now on 11/11, if you think about 1-1-1-1, right? It looks like it's balanced, right? But it's only balanced if you balance it. And what does that mean? It's a portal of opportunity. It's a new beginning. If you think about pitching a tent, and I know there's varieties, but in the old days, and I'm sort of old these days, there were just 4 posts, right? And then the tent would be draped over that, and sometimes there was one in the middle. But if you don't have those 4 posts to make something strong and sturdy, it's going to keep leaning one way or the other. And so 11/11 is like those tent stakes. It's like that new beginning to create a firm foundation. And it's a foundation not only of belief, but also of opportunity and action. There's so many different parts to this, and I don't have a whole day to tell you all of them. But what I will say is the gifts of light that you each bring will allow you, if you choose, to be a guardian at the gate. So instead of a group of people getting together in the old way of ain't it awful, the world's going to hell in a handbasket and everyone sits around and agrees. And now there's people sitting around and agreeing that, oh, that group is at fault. Oh, no, it's that group that's at fault. Anything but me. So again, I'm going to say it for the 3rd or the 4th time. Do not argue with people whose opinions are so fixed that they cannot hear you. But there are many who are simply trapped in a loop that has been playing on the news and in the media and in other places that has them sort of spellbound in that negative loop. And so if you can choose to truly say something true, loving, and meaningful, it will shift, or not always, but it can shift where they're at. Sometimes it's just saying, boy, that must be difficult to feel that or to believe that. I find solace, I find comfort, I find joy, I find peace when I, and of course, fill in the blanks. And you're not telling them you should, you're just giving them another idea, another place to put their attention. And that's really such a significant thing in this time where so many are, as I said, sort of beside themselves with challenge. Now, to be a guardian of the gate is something really joyous. It's really joyous because you watch them go from fear to hope. I know, I think I mentioned this last time or the time before, and there are so many good people doing so many good things. But if you haven't yet looked at Chef Jose and World Central Kitchen, do yourself a favor. Look at what this man is doing. Going to all of these war-torn places where there's not a cook stove in sight, but somehow he makes it happen. And what is leading him? What is he doing? What he's decided is, I'm not going to wait for someone else to figure this out, for the government to pass a regulation, for them to send money that sits somewhere and doesn't do anything. I'm going to take my light, my set of skills, which happens to be about cooking, but also about bringing people together. And I'm going to feed people who are hungry. And so there's the actual act. That's why I wanted to give you something you could all kind of get your arms around. There's the actual act of giving food, which of course is magnificent when people are starving. But there's also seeing not only him, but all of the many people that come to help, who are not doing it for the money. This is such an important shift in the world's psychology. And as I've told you many times before, there's nothing wrong with money. I wish you all to have all the money that makes you happy. And what that does is it creates a construct that eliminates human kindness. Like, why did you do that? There's no money in it for you. And so all of the ways that the guardians of the gate behave, and of course he's one of them, although he may or may not use that terminology, is they show up and they bring their skill set. And sometimes it's a conversation, sometimes it's Reiki, sometimes it's love, prayer, food, etc., etc., etc. And what is it you're doing? You are turning the tide. You are turning the tide. And the tide for thousands of years now has been war, domination, retribution, all of that. So to turn the tide, people need to believe again in the kindness of humanity, in the compassion of humanity, in the wisdom of humanity. And again, there's certainly lots that would discourage people. But if you show up with your smile, with your basket of food, with whatever it happens to be, you are turning the tide. You are building a new foundation, not only for America and Canada and the Western world, but really all over the world. And to realize, if we only do things for money, what we're saying is the people don't matter. The money is what matters. And therefore the humanity becomes shriveled into Scrooge at every corner. And so just as in the Christmas Carol, Scrooge got his comeuppance, the world is moving in that direction, despite what you might see. Yes, it's Veterans Day. And Samara and I and our friend Regina made a beautiful video some years ago that I'll make sure she puts it back online in a little bit, in which we talked about how courageous everyone who serves and all the family members and all of the support staff are. And how for right now, and even though this was made probably 8 or 9 years ago, even now, you can't just lay down your arms and say, oh, let's all, be nice to each other, because that hatred is so deep. And it has become, as I said, kind of a spell. that they're living in, and that they believe, if they don't rise up and kill this one or that one, life's not worth living. And so to turn that tide, to change it from a world in which power and money are seen as the most important thing, we need Mary's angels. We need all of you and thousands and millions of others who show up with a smile, with a bucket of food, with a broom if you're helping somebody, going to the hospital and holding someone's hand, looking after a neighbor who's, alone and lonely. When you show up like that, there's so much joy in your own heart, but you are truly, truly turning the tide. Because everything, when you think about this world, is built on frequency. It's built on frequency. And so the frequency of love, compassion, kindness, and joy is quite high. The frequency of fear and despair and power hungry and, of course, war and all of that is quite low. But when someone is in that low of vibration, it's hard for them to change. It's hard for them to get out. And so we're asking you to go down, not all the way, because that wouldn't work right now, but go to the next level down where someone could just use that hand up, that smile, that laughter, that light that you're bringing, and share it. Not to be famous, not for the money, not to have a little scorecard, but just because you've chosen to be a guardian at the gate. Will this war end? Will there be leadership that you can trust? Not for a while. I wish I could give you another answer. I really do. But what's happening is the groundswell of all of you. That is what will turn the tide. So you and your friends and your family, whatever will feel expansive, loving, kind, compassionate, do that. Do that. Prayer is wonderful. But as Mother Teresa pointed out so clearly, prayer without action is no prayer at all. And so what action? And again, it doesn't have to be, I'm going to, build an orphanage, if you financially, if you can, please do it. But it's in the meantime, it's changing the frequency that people are living in. Because just as joy is contagious, so is fear. So you become someone who brings the frequency of light. Imagine them. You bring the frequency of light and clarity. And of course, all the corresponding joy, compassion, kindness, and all of that. And so when you do that, when you bring that gift of light, internally, the mind shift when you open your third eye in your heart. And I know you all know this, but it's something to be reminded of. When you have your third eye in your heart, the eye of God and the heart of your own well-being and humanity, you change someone else who's moving through the world in judgment, not discernment, judgment, toward joy. I wish, again, I could say, oh, well, they'll immediately just go from judgment to joy, but that's a longer trip. But if you can wake them out of judgment, if you can wake them out of despair, if you can wake them out of bullying and belligerent behavior and all of that, if you can do that, you've moved them toward the tide that we are all hoping to bring. And that's huge. That's huge. So let me make a distinction between an emissary of light and guardian of the gate. An emissary of light is who you are every minute, sleeping, waking, brushing your teeth, petting the dog. That's who you are. You are bringing in your light. It doesn't really have to do necessarily with action. You are living your light. Okay. A guardian of the gate includes your human, compassionate heart, responding to an individual or a group or a situation. And the two together now compel you really to do something, whatever that is. And to know that when you are operating as an emissary of light and a guardian of the gate, you are one of the thousands and hopefully soon millions that are turning the tide that this world so desperately needs to turn. The other thing I want to say is that there's a lot of ideas and beliefs and information floating around in the flotsam and jetsam of the Earth's field. Don't get too ingrained in your opinions and notice when other people are. Because there's really only one opinion that matters, I think, and that's that you're all one and you're all made of love. Behavior is a different story. And so, yes, you will see behaviors that are not what you'd like to see. But to hold an opinion that this group or that group is to blame and this and that, what you're doing is you're saying there are some people that don't deserve to live. And that is not for you to decide. So what I want for all of you that are so tender and sweet and beautiful is to think about, do I want to be a guardian of the gate? When I get dressed in the morning, do I want to kind of put on a little gold star here and say, okay, off I go, off I go. And you know, it's funny, I'll just give you a very tiny example. So Samara and her friend were in the natural grocer food store. And Samara just had one item and the gentleman was ringing it up. And he said, would you like to donate $1 to the food fund? She said, yes. And he kind of looked up from what he was doing. Like it seemed like perhaps he'd gotten a lot of no's that day. And Samara just said, yes, I'm so grateful that I have food to eat. And I just wish that for everyone. And the young man said, don't you think gratitude's really important? I said, yes, I do. And they both sort of smiled at each other. And it was just, again, it was a lovely moment. Now, was he already, needing a guardian of the gate? I think not. He seemed like a very sweet young man. But I think, again, there was that infusion and exchange of, yes, this is the tide we want to be in. Gratitude and giving what we can to people who have less. And so it's very tiny sometimes, very tiny. But what you're doing is you're encouraging hope, possibility, kindness, compassion, and love. And those are mighty forces, mighty forces. So we've gone about our usual half an hour, and I want to just let you all know that this season from now through all the different holidays, Kwanzaa and Hanukkah and Christmas and all of that, and New Year's, don't get lost in the frenzy, having the right presents, buying this, having whatever. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying don't get lost in it. Keep yourself aligned with the fact that you are an emissary of light. And the choice to be a guardian of the gate. And then the holidays will be the sweetest, perhaps, you've ever known. So I wish you well. I congratulate all of you for being both emissaries of light and hopefully choosing to be a guardian of the gate. I know it's a rough road right now for a lot of people, but that's why we need you to realize this is why I came. This is why I came now, to help turn the tide, to create a world of kindness and compassion. And yes, money's fine. But to again put first the heart and soul of this world. So I wish you all so much love. I'm going to stop the video in a moment so that we can have our group chat and prayer. And I do also just want to say, prayer is lovely. When in doubt and when you're home and there's nowhere else you can be, pray. Pray for all of us. Pray for those who are suffering. But when you go outside, see if you can lift the heart of at least one person that day. Much love. Much love. And we're finding the video, okay? All right.